Hey everybody, it's Harry from Super Daddy BBQ. I am super excited here. I'm here with my YouTube subscriber Dennis, and guess what? I've been waiting for my SmokeFire for a long time. No SmokeFire in the mail. So Dennis responded to my online SOS, and Dennis is one of the few who got a SmokeFire here in California, and was shipped to him. So this episode is about Dennis showing us the kind of the ins and outs of the SmokeFire, which you have been cooking on for a few days.
Yes.
And you did the unboxing.
Yes.
We showed some footage for that. You did the first cook.
Yep.
And then you did a few other cooks on it already, right?
Yes, I have.
Cool. So in this episode, we're going to share with you, together with Precious and the other two dogs coming.
Yeah, Maxon.
Maxon. So Precious is Mr. Beans for Dennis. So when we get done with the cook today, we're going to cook a whole bunch of meats. We're going to cook brisket, ribs, pork butt, sausages, and SCA style steak. So we're going to put his SmokeFire to the entire ringer of all of the meats, cook competition style, in today's episode. SmokeFire is at 275, and we're gonna do a little pancake test on it. Dennis is gonna go ahead and load the pancakes on it, and we're gonna put the pancakes all spread nice and evenly.
Okay.
Like maybe one every few inches apart. That way we can kind of like line it on the side. And from the way the pancake burns, you can pretty much tell how even the SmokeFire burns.
Great.
And
You want another row in back?
yeah, let's do 4 rows.
Okay.
4 rows. That way we can see how well he does at 275, which is the temperature most of us will cook at. 250 to 275 is pretty much right, Dennis?
Yes.
That's kind of what you do also.
Yep, exactly.
And we want to make sure that we can see which one burns first or which one dries off first. And that way we can see if there's any hot spots towards the edge.
Gotcha.
And this will tell us how well the SmokeFire is engineered. And we'll do a test at 275, 250-ish, and we'll do another test at 400.
Okay.
And then we'll do another test at 600, because I guess folks like to grill on the SmokeFire, so that's a good test for them. And just a simple little pancake test that you can use instead of spending $60 on a brisket. Maybe a couple more. Let's see how evenly it burns.
Gotcha.
And let's get some on top here. All right, we're at 275, and 15 minutes later, it's still running evenly. So this is a good test that you can do on your pit at home to ensure that the SmokeFire is burning evenly. So I am not seeing any burn marks here on the top ones, even on the edges here, which typically get hot. No burn marks here, all good. On this end here, no burn marks, none in the middle. So you can tell from this test that the SmokeFire burns really evenly. You don't have to spend $50 on meat to do this test. So now we're gonna run the test. We're gonna run it at 400. So we're gonna crank it up to 400. And we're gonna do a hot and fast brisket today. So we're gonna cook it at 400. And we're gonna take it to 600 to sear some steaks also.
Press it again to set
And we're gonna set it, press it again, sets. Excellent. Okay, it's at 400 now. We're gonna do our test again. I'll be make sure there's no hot spots here. Grab some. I can see the flames shooting out the right hand side. Not so many flames on the left hand side. So we'll see what happens here. We're running about 400 now, and I just want to run the microphone close to the unit so you can hear the sound of the fan blowing. And my pellet cooker decibel levels, that is really quiet. I have a few other pellet cookers I've cooked on, and the SmokeFire is very quiet. I'm gonna let you guys listen to it. So you notice that the right hand side here is more burnt than the left.
Yep.
Right? So that tells me that when it's ramping up, there is a hot spot on the right hand side. So you can see from here, from left to right, the right is burning. So way we want to troubleshoot this is we'll put a fresh set of pancakes on now that it has reached temp, because you shouldn't check the evenness of the heat while the fire is ramping up. You should always check it when it is at 400. So we'll take off this one and put some fresh one on. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. Let's take a look at it, and so it's pretty even, not too bad, right? So what we found out is that if I look at one here and one here, right, it's somewhat even, just a little bit darker on the right hand side. This one here versus this one here. So the conclusion is once you come up to temp, it runs pretty even. It is when it ramping up that it causes a problem. I can see that the fire has subsided down here. You see that it's too dark, but the flames have been shooting out on one side. It seems to have evened out. So if you wait until it comes up to temp, the problem of the hot spot goes away. You can see from my test here, the left and right have the same amount of burn.
Precious.
Okay, you can spray the meat here. So it's drying out very rapidly, so it's beautiful. Give it a nice coating. A little bit here. Okay, excellent, right? Yeah, yep, looks good. Okay, close it down. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Pork butt going in. Flames on the side. Crusting up nicely. A little bit on the butt. Yeah, it's drying out really fast. Excellent. Okay, excellent. Cooking really well. Still keeping on 400 degrees on a hot and fast brisket and pork butt. And here's the burnt test that we did earlier. Good for snacks for the dogs here.
That's right.
Here. Okay. Let's check the temperature of the unit here. And Dennis is gonna put the probe in using a tag we use with the potato. And just take a potato between a couple. And then Dennis, you mentioned that you needed to push it really hard to get the probe.
Yeah, exactly, Harry. The first time I used the probe, I didn't seat it all the way, and so therefore it wasn't showing me the correct temperature. But once I realized it just needed
Right
a little
here.
firmer push,
Yep.
then it snapped into place and haven't had any issues.
Alright, so it's ramping up. It's 165. So we'll see how accurately it measures the temperature here. Alright, you can't see it, but it's showing 400 set temperature, and the probe is showing about 430. So there's a 30-degree difference in the area. I'm gonna move the thermometer now to another location. See if it's gonna change. Move it over here. See if it will make a difference on the right-hand side. So I don't know if you can see this, but there is actually quite a lot of ash on the surface of the smoker. So this does produce ash. We are also cooking it at 400 degrees, and there's a lot of smoke coming out from the vents in the back also. And I think that the cavitation continues to be an issue here. I just moved the pellets, but I can see that it's cavitating like that here again. So this is something that you probably want to do until perhaps Weber issues some kind of a enhancement to this portion, so that I guess the chute is a little bit kind of shallow in terms of the incline for this part here. So that's probably what's happening. Temperature is pretty constant. We have 400 set for the Weber SmokeFire, and it's reading 392, 390-ish, so 10 degrees off. That's pretty good for the probe on the right hand side here. So that's the probe on this side. I'm gonna move the probe over to this side and see if it has the same temperature gradient here. Beautiful. It's a pretty gorgeous crust. Alright, let's see how this go this side. All right, the temperature is spot on. We set the SmokeFire at 400. The temperature probe is reading at 401, so that's really, really close. And the probe is right here, so towards the middle center. So it cooks really, really nice and evenly. And we're gonna be turning down the temperature a little bit now that I have a crust. I'm gonna reset it back to 275 degrees. So, when you wrap, right, you're gonna put the butt about halfway point here, about here, right here, about halfway point. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool. So go ahead. Pork butt has crusted, so Dennis is gonna pick it up now. Go ahead, remove it gently. Okay, step. Run your hand on it. Okay. Put your hand on it so it doesn't drip on the dog here. Okay, step aside. Put it right in the middle here. This way a little bit. There we go. Stop there. Okay, perfect. So Peggy is going to apply some of the mop, about a third of a bottle. Just drizzle it all over. Okay, a little bit of brown sugar, maybe a quarter cup of brown sugar. Sprinkle on it. A little bit more. Okay, and then if you can carefully kind of place the butter, kind of 4 pieces on top. All right, and then you could go ahead and roll the foil, 2 layers, 2 layers on the foil. Right,
Great.
now that the crust has set,
Okay.
it's got maximum flavor,
Gotcha.
but it's not tender. So we have to give it 3 things: time, temperature, and moisture, which we have from the mop we use, right?
Yep.
Right.
So we'll put this in the oven,
Oven.
at around 275 degrees until it is nice and tender. Okay, bring it over there. All right. So if you can gently lift it up and without damaging the crust. Try not to damage the crust. Show them the wood block. So the wood block is there to make sure that the liquid does not puddle, causing it to have a good bark. Gently put some liquid, very gentle, so the crust doesn't fall out. So there's a part where you held it a little bit too tightly, so the crust has fallen off. So just FYI for the future.
For the future.
Just do it gently so that the crust will not fall off. Okay. Keep going gently. Yeah. Go ahead and pour the rest on the side here. You can see it seeping in like a sponge. Okay, go ahead and pour it on the side. Okay, excellent. All right, so we're gonna wrap it again, very carefully this way. Of course, my foil isn't long enough, so maybe we'll scooch it a little bit to the left here. Okay. All right, goes in the oven around 275. You may want to get a cookie sheet so that in case it spills, it doesn't spill into your oven. So it's been about 9:45, 10:45, 11:45, 12:45, about 2 hours. Is there enough room? Okay, excellent. Perfect fit. Excellent. So let's see, we started at 9:45, right?
Yes.
So that was exactly
2
hours.
Yep.
Isn't that fast? I mean, you cook the brisket and
that's
pork butt in
surprising.
2 hours.
It's amazing.
Right, so this will take about another 3 hours or so, and after that, food's on. So total maybe less than 5 hours. So
Nice.
when you cook it hot and fast, you can do things really fast. Dennis is getting ready to load the ribs, and I just mentioned to Dennis that we're gonna load the ribs on a rib rack. There's 3 of them here. He's gonna load it with the big end up, so that when the meat end stays down, it will retract evenly. So we're gonna pick up the rib gently without damaging the sides, pick it up gently, and then put it into the rib rack. Okay, gently without damaging, and squish it together a little bit, squish it together a little bit. Okay, good, that's good. Okay, now pick up the next one carefully. Pick the big end up, so that when it retracts, it will retract nicely. The big end is this end, so this end stays up. Gently, carefully, without skip 1 rack.
Okay.
So, excellent. One more. These are the rib tips, also very good eating. Okay, excellent. We're gonna run it around 275. Oh.
Dog toy.
It was scary. Okay, all right, let's close it and let it get happy. It'll probably take about 2 hours to crust.
I just wanted a little explanation on why I had to not only have the fat side up, but then turn it long ways also.
All right, so the reason that you have the big end up is so that when the ribs are sitting this way, right,
Yep.
the meat will retract.
Okay.
So if you have it this way, when the meat retracts, it tends to retract unevenly.
Oh,
This
I
is
see.
one of those black belt tricks that professional pitmasters use. So we like to put the big end up so that when the meat retracts, the gravity helps to hold the amount of meat that shrinks from the bottom a little bit even.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
So that your ribs look better at the end. So just a minor tip, but a lot of these small black belt tips do matter.
Interesting.
Okay, so the meat is drying up beautifully, so you can see the crust is drying up, so that's what you want. So you go ahead and spray it. Flip this around here. The sprays here. Okay, excellent. Close it. Alright, so that will allow it to crust up even more and faster. Alright, the ribs are ready, and Dennis is going to foil them. He's doing the hack to clean the bones off the end of the tips and pressing down the meat so that you can break the membrane so that you retract beautifully. The ribs have a beautiful mahogany crust ready to be wrapped. So we'll start off the process by flipping it over. Let's go meat side first. Okay, so you notice that the crust is set, therefore the rub will not fall off. So the first thing you want to do is put some brown sugar on it. Alright, Dennis, what do you think? The back of the plastic fork is like your teeth.
That's right.
And you poked it, and what do you think?
I think it'll taste great.
It'll taste great.
Good
Okay,
tenderness.
so show everybody here. Poke it. So once it goes through, see, that's your teeth. That's the easiest way to check for tenderness on your rib. Once it's done, go ahead and grab it, take it off. Yes, but if you don't mind, grab this so he can put it. Yeah, be careful, don't spill it. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right, let it sit somewhere safe and ready to rest before the dogs get to it. All right, I'd like to address a situation that I've seen some YouTubers post that says that their unit failed because the temperature was stuck at a low temperature and never came up. When we put the ribs in earlier, so right, I noticed the temperature dropped from 275 down to 220, and it stayed at 220 for a while, probably about 3 or 4 minutes. And if you wait, it'll come right back up. So the algorithm, I suspect, has been designed to allow for the door to be opened so that it will not try to run the fan hot and fast so that you don't have a lot of ash in your face. And if you give the algorithm some time, the algorithm will recover. So I'm back spot on at 275, and the probe number 1 is at 274. So this is pretty much as precise as you can get. So if you notice that your SmokeFire has stopped working because the temperature has dropped down to a low temperature, hold your horses. Do not turn the unit off and post that on YouTube, because if you wait, the algorithm will recover and slowly bring your pit back up to temp, because on probe 1 right here, on this end, it's running beautifully at 275, properly calibrated. All right, so you heard it from me. Please do not think that your unit has failed. Give it some time. It took probably 8 minutes for this to recover, and I'm back at 275. If I had reacted to the 220, tried to finagle the unit, it would have been disastrous. So I just let it cook, be patient, let the engineering work, and I'm back to 275. I'm also checking the pellet hopper, making sure that the pellet hopper is there's no cavitation. So this is about the only thing I think is worthy mentioning about this unit, is the cavitation on the back that might happen because this slope is a little bit too shallow. But besides that, this unit seems to be performing as designed. All right, a SmokeFire real world test is not complete without cooking steaks, because this unit has been counted, right?
Yes.
To be able to sear to 600 degrees. I did it in Chicago at the product launch, but we're gonna do it here in Dennis's backyard because this is a real world test. No smoke and no mirrors. We're gonna do it real world. Okay, we have our steaks going on. I show them how to use the grill grate. We'll test it for 600 degree heat. Got our hot links ready to go. Sun is setting. Briskets are gonna be done. Butt's gonna be done. Ribs are done. The side dishes all ready for a dinner party. All right, so we're going up to 600 degrees. We want to get the grill grates up to temperature here. We're gonna light it up here to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. The steaks are cooked to 110. I'm gonna show my crew here how to do the X flip on the steak. Everybody got it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like that.
Get it, Harry. Get it. Yeah.
Okay, Excellent. So steaks are almost ready. Sure. So we have baby back ribs, some killers, brisket. And look at the smoke ring on the SmokeFire. SmokeFire smoke ring. See, you can match us, right? We have a pulled pork here. More ribs, a steak, small pieces, chunks, serving size, the sausage, and we have some Slappylicious beef. All right, Dennis is done, and we're gonna do the shutdown cycle. And how do you do the shutdown cycle, Dennis?
You hold the button down.
Hold the button down, yes.
Till it gives you that signal.
Shut down.
Select shutdown, and you can walk away and come back in about 10-15 minutes. It'll be off.
Okay, so please give the caution to the people who are complaining that it doesn't shut down fast enough.
It seems to work just fine to me, especially at 600 degrees. You're coming down a long ways. It needs to cycle through those remaining pellets and do its thing. So
the auger is going to go backwards, right?
Yep.
And then a few times to clear the auger, and then that way there's no chance of any fire
Exactly.
in your pellet grill, right? So
Yep.
they put a lot of thought into it. So for those of you who are complaining on YouTube that it doesn't shut down, takes too long, there's all safety precautions back here. The auger is going to be moving back and forth to ensure that the auger is clean and free of burning pellets.
that's right.
After 15 minutes, it's safe to power off your grill. Once you see that little message, you can go ahead and unplug it right there. It's even got a handy carrier, so go ahead and unplug, and the cook is done. All right, Dennis, you're gonna talk me through the breakdown cycle, right?
Yep.
Of the pit here.
I'll just
So
give you the
what's
breakdown.
happening now? So we got all the oil at the bottom.
Yep, and we've got everything in the tray.
Yep.
I'm gonna probably take out the grates and wipe it down a little bit after a big cook like this.
Yep.
Pull out the tray, dump it, and I'm gonna be good to go.
So you had no oil dripping all over the bottom
Nope.
of your pit, right? So all those naysayers are saying that the oil will be everywhere. That's not true.
Nope.
I don't see a lot of oil at the bottom here.
No,
Right?
It does have channels that push it down, and I don't see any resting residue in there.
You can go down here and look at the thing. A little bit of ash.
And then I'll
I
sweep
know
that all into the tray.
no major issue here. Sweep the ash in the tray.
Don't even see much grease.
And let's see, is the hole here? Oh yeah, it's the holes here, right?
Yep, and the little trough.
Little trough, okay.
Yep.
So not that hard to do, right?
No.
And then
easy.
and all the oil drains from
all
where?
to the same spot. Yep.
Okay, so all the oil drains here. So all the ash and oil goes in here.
Just take.
Take this thing out and then change out the tray, and you're all set, right?
Yes.
And not a lot of residue in here.
You can see there's hardly any.
Hardly any. So folks, it's easy to clean. Please don't send me all this comments saying that it's hard to clean, because it doesn't look that complicated to do. You can get it set up with a pizza cook. The hopper needs to be clean now, right?
No,
Okay.
I just
So
keep.
hopper needs to be clean. We burn how much pellets you think in the whole day?
Probably a little less than a full 20-pound bag.
Less than a 20-pound bag,
I'd
right?
say I'd have to say 15
we started
to
cooking
17.
at 9:45, right?
Yep.
What time is it now?
Bella, you want a little pig?
Is a little after 5.
Okay, so a whole day's cooked on
Yep.
one bag of pellets, right? So
Yep.
not bad for $15.
No, not at all.
No Slap Your Daddy video is done without animals getting fed. So can you describe your repertoire here? Who are
That's
these,
right. We
who are
have
these beautiful creatures.
Lucy, Max, and Precious is the little beagle. So
Lucy,
be gentle.
be gentle.
Good girl.
Okay.
Max,
Max.
good boy. He's a little more aggressive.
Okay. And
Precious B. There you go, Precious.
Okay.
A little bit more. One more little bite.
I'm here with Dennis, and Dennis did the unboxing. And can you talk him through how difficult it was, or how easy it was to assemble the unit?
Yeah, it was really pretty simple, straightforward. The instructions were clear, and I would say all in all, I took my time. I would say it took about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, just following the instructions and doing what was instructed, and it looked good.
Okay, so Dennis is not a typical guy, because a typical guy doesn't read instructions, right?
Yeah.
But you are a what do you call a surveyor by
Yep,
trade, so
land
he's
surveyor.
used to reading instruction manuals and learning how to do things. So I know that on some YouTube videos I've seen and some forums, people were complaining that the assembly was a little bit more involved. Your opinion is, you know, if you're a kind of average person, you should be able to put it together
Exactly.
with or without the instructions. Hopefully with the instructions.
Yeah.
Some people were saying that some of the pieces were not aligned properly. Did you see any manufacturing imperfections where some of the things didn't line up in terms of the chute? The pieces that you had to screw together?
I did not. Everything went together pretty much the way the instructions laid it out. Like I said, I'm not an expert when it comes to putting that stuff together, but it seemed like I watched a few videos and noticed that people did not follow the instructions, and that seemed like where they were having difficulty. Maybe not necessarily in the build of the barbecue itself, but more the, you know, not doing the software update and those things. So I tried to follow the instructions specifically, and luckily didn't have any problems, any issues whatsoever.
So that is brought up a very important point with this product, because this is really Weber's kind of first major software/hardware product. Weber prides themselves in making kind of mechanical or manual devices. They started putting out some thermometers and some probes recently, but this is their first foray into creating a pit, right, with electronics and hardware. So I'm an IT guy, I build data centers for a living, and I can tell you that software and hardware problems tend to be the Achilles heel, especially if it's your first time as a company building them. I know that I read some of the forums online, and a lot of people having trouble with the firmware. So for those of you not aware what firmware is the software code that's embedded in the chip. So when the factory ships the controller for the Weber to control the fan and the temperature sensors and so on, the logic that's controlled in the chip has to be upgraded, right?
Yes.
So that's called a firmware upgrade. And I believe that you did upgrade the firmware.
Yes, absolutely. First thing, I just kind of turned it on, let it sit by itself. It told me it was going to do that firmware update once I connected my phone to it, and it did it in about 10-15 minutes.
So there was a Wi-Fi connection to the unit, and was it hard to connect it to the Wi-Fi?
No, it was seamless.
And then you press a button, and then the unit was smart enough to connect to your home Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Go out to the cloud to access the Weber site to download the patch, right? The software, right?
And the experience I had was, I think it said it could take up to 25 minutes. I must have had a decent internet connection, and it took about 10 to 15.
10-15 minutes. So the way it works is when the unit is manufactured, the chip is already in the motherboard on the controller.
Yep.
That could have happened many months ago.
Yes.
So it could happen even maybe 6 months to a year ago. So the engineers keep tweaking the product towards the release. So it's vitally important that if you're watching this video, you go online and you download the firmware. So I don't want to hear any comments in my comments below of people complaining that their unit didn't work. And I'm going to ask you the very first question. Did you flash your firmware? If you didn't flash your firmware, please don't leave all these comments saying your SmokeFire did not work. The other thing I'm also going to address also is the chute, right?
Yes.
So the chute is a 20-pound chute, and I spoke to the Weber engineers, and I heard some people say that there isn't enough, I guess, weight to push all the pellets into the hopper, into the auger. So sometimes the unit runs out of pellets when it's really not running out of pellets. I think that you overcame that issue because you filled the pellets to the top, right?
Yes, I put that first bag of pellets in there, which pretty much filled up that whole hopper. I never had any issue with having to, you know, push them down or check them or anything. It seemed to work the way it was supposed to.
Okay, so another tip is if you look at the way the hopper works, it's kind of a shallow slope. If you don't have enough pellets or enough weight, then if you have kind of like a little vacuum or little kind of a void in there, the pellets are going to bind up and not going to fall into the auger, and the auger is not going to be able to push the pellets in, and your Weber may stop basically working because it's out of fuel when it actually is not. I think the fix for that is really simple. Go ahead and make sure that your pellet is full, the pellet hopper is full. The other option is you can take your hand and kind of stir it around and you'll be fine. This shouldn't happen on a pit built by Weber, but hopefully Weber engineers are listening to our video, and you guys can maybe do an improvement later by modifying the design of the slope for the pellet hopper, so that for folks who are maybe do not want to fill the pellet hopper to the top with 20 pounds, they want to fill it with 5 pounds, it'll work as good with 5 pounds of pellets versus say a full load of 20.
Yeah.
But if you have only 5 pounds of pellets left, I would just take my hand and kind of stir it and kind of push it down so that it does not kind of bind up. It shouldn't happen. No excuses for Weber. They should try to take care of the problem. So I'm going to have Dennis address another issue that I've heard online about the length of the shutdown sequence. Right, so the Weber engineers designed a few safety precautions in the shutdown sequence in terms of like even reversing the auger, so there's no chance of any kind of embers entering up in the pellet hopper and setting the pellet hopper on fire, because that is a risk when you have a pellet cooker. So what's your experience on the shutdown cycle?
It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to run through its whole shutdown cycle. The first time, because it was new, I wanted to watch it and see what it was doing. After that, to be honest, I just let it do its shutdown and go in and eat, and then I come out and shut it off. So.
Okay, so those are his Labradors. What are their names?
Max, Lucy.
Max, Lucy, and Precious. How hard is it to clean all the gunk below? Because I know when I put out the 3 videos, when I did the product launch in Chicago, a lot of you were asking questions about how easy is the cleanup, because that little tiny oil tray at the bottom may not grab all the oil, right? So what's your experience, Dennis?
My experience was it has. I've cooked on it 3 times now, and last night after my barbecue hamburgers, I went ahead and did a more thorough cleaning other than just the tray. I was able to sweep everything from the bottom right into the tray and dump that. I'd say maybe 10 minutes of cleanup, really pretty quick and easy, and it haven't had any issues.
Okay, so at the end of this cook, we're gonna also do a little run and have Dennis show us how he cleans it. So no major issues. Now the grease was caught in that pan.
Yes.
So none of the grease spilled on the bottom of the SmokeFire, right? Which is what you guys were asking me about in the launch.
Everything that I've experienced has been what I expected. I'm not a professional barbecuer like you, Harry, but this was my first effort with smokers, and it's worked the way I expected and worked really well. Okay,
so you're hearing from a newbie who's never owned a pellet cooker. So it's not me telling you all the good things about the SmokeFire. This is an independent assessment by Dennis. Dennis is the backyarder. It's his first pellet cooker, and he's giving good results on it. If his results are pretty typical of what's out there, I think that the Weber SmokeFire definitely has a lot of potential. You don't have to be a guru like me in order to use one. You fired it up and it ran fine.
Yep.
Right, so I know that been a lot of other people who had different experiences, especially people in cold climates. We live in SoCal. It's a beautiful, 60 degrees, 65 degrees now. The sun is shining, it's blue skies, there's no snow on the ground. So maybe our experience may be unusual. A little bit different. But if you are cooking in like minus 20 and you have snow for 6 feet out in the backyard and you're firing your SmokeFire, your results may vary. I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but I'm saying that under ideal conditions in SoCal, we are getting a great experience with the SmokeFire.
That's right.
We had a fun cook today, and at Dennis's home, one of my YouTube subscribers was kind enough to offer me to cook on his SmokeFire. So for those of you who fast forwarded to the end and want to know what the conclusion is, so here are my conclusions. So what's the good? The good is that it works as advertised. It will smoke and grill pretty much flawlessly, hitting 600 degrees, hitting 275, 250, 300, 400 degrees without any issue. The construction is very substantial, so that you're going to get a quality build and quality product. It has good instructions when you do the build, that's according to what Dennis told me. I will find out when my SmokeFire actually shows up in the mail. I'm still waiting for it to come back. It runs 250, 400, and 600 pretty accurately. So I attested myself because I tested it. And overall, the price range is in the ballpark of its competitors. So for those of you who are belly aching about how much it costs, it is a really, really decent buy comparable to all the competitors out there. Now, let's talk about, more importantly, you came to my channel to have an honest opinion on what I think. There are some things that I think you should watch out for with the SmokeFire. Number one, once you install the SmokeFire, you gotta upgrade the firmware. So if you don't upgrade the firmware, it's not gonna work, because the chipset on the motherboard of the unit is probably manufactured many months ago. The first thing you want to do is you want to connect it to Wi-Fi and download the firmware upgrade, because without the firmware upgrade, it's not going to work properly. So for those of you who are complaining that it doesn't work right out of the box, no, it will not, because it is a software product. I build data centers for a living, and firmware upgrades and software upgrades are part and parcel of working with the electronic product. Number 2, the angle of the incline in the hopper is a potential area of concern that causes cavitation with the pellets. So you're gonna get a point where not many pellets are falling in and you think that the SmokeFire has shut down, when all it is that somehow you have a little cavitation void underneath the pellets. You just need to kind of break it up to make the pellets fall into the hopper and into the auger. This is really not something that you should expect for a $1,200 product. I'm hoping that Weber will pay attention to these comments and feedback, constructive feedback, and try to fix the hopper so that when you cook a full load of 20 pounds of pellets, when it shrinks down to say 5 or 6 pounds, there probably isn't enough weight to push the pellets down, so you have to kind of move it with your hand. Not a big deal, and not a kind of showstopper finding with the SmokeFire. Next one is you got to make sure you read instructions when you're installing it to ensure all the pieces are lined up so that the hopper and the chute assembly is completely lined up so that you don't have any hot spots. It does have a little bit of a hot spot situation going on the right of the firebox when you view the SmokeFire, and it is more prevalent when cooking at 400 degrees. So if you're doing hot and fast, the fire tends to shoot on the right hand side. It only happens when you are ramping up. Once you hit the temperature 400, it runs pretty evenly. And at 275 and below, I had zero issues with the flames being more on the right hand side of the fire, the metal fire pit cover. Last one I want to say is that when the temperature drops and the SmokeFire looks like it's doing nothing, be patient, it's not broken. So the algorithm that is made such a way that there is a few minutes before the algorithm kicks in, and I suspect that that's because when you open up the lid, the engineers don't want you to get ash in your face with the blower coming on. So when you close the lid, the system does a little bit of a time lapse before it turns on the blower to bring the temperature up. So I know that some of my YouTube folks that I read has said that the unit is broken, they have to do a reset. You really don't need to do a reset, besides just be a little patient, because the algorithm comes back on to take your SmokeFire back into range. And I suspect this is due to the need to ensure that there's no ash blowing in your face. So what's my overall conclusion of the SmokeFire? Is it perfect? No, it's got a little bit of a rough edge to it, considering that it's the first product produced by Weber in the pellet arena. I think they did an admirable job. The one that you saw here was purchased by Dennis. He paid full price for it, so he has no, how should I say, affinity to the company, so he gave an honest assessment. He really likes it, and he's a first-time backyarder who using his first pellet grill. He had no issues. When I was using his unit today, I did point out some areas of improvement to him, to areas to watch out for. So is the SmokeFire like a British sports car where not everything is 100% figured out? A little bit on the incline of the pellet hopper, a little bit on the startup ramp up of the temperature, but overall I still think that the SmokeFire is a winner. In its price range, I think that it will provide formidable competition to its competitors in the $1,200 pellet cooker market. So there you have it. I'm gonna drive home now. Brought some barbecue with me, and I want to make sure that Mr. Beans gets some too, because some of Dennis's pets receive some barbecue love. I gotta go back and feed my brisket dog. So join me for the next segment where we go show Beans some of the brisket cooked on the SmokeFire. So I need his seal of approval. Beans, we're back at the house, and we had a great cook-off today on the SmokeFire. I did get you some goodies to eat. All right, here we go.